episode 16, Tragedy into Triumph. In this episode, we'll be covering the idea behind how God can take the nastiest, cruelest of situations and turn them into the greatest successes and even better testimonies. So without further ado, and jumping right into this episode, I'd like to make one quick side note. I have not had much time to put this episode together. Unfortunately, as my weekends usually are, very pressed for time, and just usually all over the place with zero structure. That's just typically how the weekends go. So I apologize for the lame excuse, but just wanted to throw that out there in case I start babbling like usual or I start to get sidetracked, just going straight off the dome again, as per the past couple episodes. So jump right into it. Tragedy into Triumph, a title that for some can be very simple and easy to understand because they've lived it, and to others can be extremely complex and tough to get a hold of. But hopefully by the end of this video, whether you're scenario A or B, you will have a better understanding and hopefully a different outlook, for the better, that is. So, beginning with my own personal experience and a smaller testimony. Not smaller, is definitely something that I'm truly grateful for and truly appreciative that it happened, even though I did not see in the moment it would turn into this. About a year or so ago, experienced something when I was in not such a good place that was pretty gut-wrenching and made me not want to question God, saying, why me type, mindset, but just kind of say, this is really bad timing. Something I've been praying on for a very long time, waiting for breakthrough on it. And little did I know, right around the corner was the opposite. Devastation, it felt like, and just as if everything was just piling on. Cards are stacked against me, and it was just not a good time. Not that it's never going to be a good time to experience terrible news and to live through something where you don't know the outcome, and it's definitely relatively tragic, in some eyes. To me, definitely was something I did not expect, and as I mentioned a couple times already, terrible timing, and it definitely was eye-opening. And very humbling to experience something like that. And I know I'm speaking very broad terms. There's a reason for it. I don't want to get too specific with it. And I've spoken to one other buddy about this, so he understands how incredible God can work, even in the midst of the ugliest, darkest times. Something I've been praying on for a very long time to come to fruition actually came to fruition as a result of what had gone bad in the first place. So to elaborate a little bit further, but not getting too specific, it was something, as I mentioned, I prayed on for a very, very, very long time and prayed very deep about it, if that makes sense. Something I was very passionate about praying for. And when I saw it go sideways, it definitely took me back and made me want to say, why? But in the same sense, it also didn't take very long for me to view it as an opportunity to maybe want to, pray harder on it, have my faith be tested and see how I come out on the other end. And luckily, God willing, was able to prevail in that sense by holding on to faith and clenching on, even though that was really the only thing I had to clench on to. You still got to give, credit where credit's due, I guess. That's what you want to call it here. But in a nutshell, it was a reflection, it was a result of the terrible thing that had happened, the thing that was very scary, very frightening, if I'm being honest, that turned into a tremendous testimony, still to this day, a tremendous testimony, and going strong. Prayers were answered, faith was tested, and as a result, the outcome was beautiful, and I'm forever grateful for it. And it's only because I lived through something like that you really appreciate it for what it is. So I can relate, just to throw that out there to begin this episode, which is going to be a little bit shorter than usual. I can relate. I understand how tragedy to triumph, how that process works. Obviously, some people have experienced it on a larger scale than myself, or a smaller scale, whichever. I'm not trying to strip away significance from anyone's story or testimony, but when you witness it firsthand, and I say this with love in my heart, I hope you guys have experienced this because it's humbling. You learn a lot about yourself. You learn a lot about your faith, and you realize how God can work miracles. It just shifts your mind to even when you seem hopeless and you feel like there's no way out, yes, you're not going to feel like $1,000 just saying, God's in control. But at the end of the day, there is, and you can't deny this, as long as you've been rooted in your faith for some time and really try and pursue it with your whole heart, that there is hope somewhere deep, deep, deep down. Even if it takes everything in you to find just a glimpse of it, there is hope somewhere deep down, a peace that kind of keeps you from just falling off the edge entirely. And that's what I've been holding on to for a very long time. But, that's what this faith is. As I've mentioned in previous episodes and clips on my social media accounts, one tremendous way to look at it that can give you, some confidence and some joy is thinking of it as if, God has stripped away these things from your life or has stripped away feeling or whatever it may be, and you're struggling, but you still serve faithfully just based off discipline, just solely off discipline. You look to the You could look up to the heavens and 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 view it as God saying, "Look at my faithful, devoted disciple," you know, serving me, being faithful and loyal to me, even when I've stripped away everything he cares so deeply for. And, you know, that, regardless of how crappy you may feel, definitely can spark a little something in you somewhere. I'm sure of it. I really hope it does. Um, and, for those of you who haven't experienced it, I'll make a little shift here. For those of you who haven't experienced it, I'm just reiterating on a few points I've made already. Maybe you're in it. This is better. Maybe you're in the midst of it. Not for people who haven't experienced any of it, but for people who are in the midst of that struggle, in the midst of that kind of funk, if you want to call it. You could be seeing this as like, maybe it is, you could see it, maybe it is the light at the end of the tunnel. This is your sign, as some people like to call it, that, that the Savior and the joy is on its way, the breakthrough is on its way. It is. It's going to come in due time. Eventually it will come to fruition, but you have to understand that it's when you eventually fully lean on Christ that it will come. It's not going to be, you're just struggling and saying, God, please, God, please, God, please, God, please, as if it's just words on paper because you want to be done with the muck, the crap. It's a lot deeper than that. It takes a lot more in you, and it strengthens you, and you appreciate that you endured it. I'll tell you that. Definitely appreciate it a whole lot more. Sorry, my phone is going off here. Nah, man, it's just humbling, to say the least. Definitely humbling. But you got to try and see it through. And it's a lot of times it's solely off discipline. And doesn't feel too good, but you just got to do what you got to do. Sorry, I'm just trying to put a lot of things together all at once here. As I clip these, make it a little bit sped up on Spotify and Apple Pods. You guys aren't just listening to me kind of think out loud, but and it's a lot of times too. It's kind of crazy. You see the greatest tragedies in the news that can sometimes actually bring people together at the end of the day. As of recent, you see like the police officer that was shot and killed, and all the amazing stories people had to say about him, and the chief of police or whoever it was. I'm sorry, I don't like to watch the news too much. They're saying a lot of amazing things, saying a lot of great things about the guy, and it actually ended up bringing together so many people. Obviously with that also comes a lot of hate because you always want to be able to point a finger at somebody when things go south. But it brings together a lot of people, and not that you ever say somebody's death should be what makes people want to become communal, to lean on each other. It has to take that. They shouldn't have to take that, That's the greatest struggle you see nowadays, people finding reasons to want to join, join arm in arm, and stand at the front lines. Figuratively speaking, it doesn't have to be in war, but that's the toughest part. It's just the toughest part is seeing it through. I feel like, and I know I'm kind of sidetracking a little bit because there's like so many different things I'm trying to say all at once, and it's when you don't have it written out, it gets kind of tough to do, and you babble a little bit. But it's just prevalent to see that, pretty common. And it's just unfortunate. That's all. That's what I'm trying to get at. It's just, like I say, a lot of different ways. The most simple way to put it is that it's unfortunate that it takes the greatest of tragedies for people to want to let their guard down or put their ego aside, and join arm in arm, as I had said, be communal and want to be in each other's company. It takes tragedy a lot of the time to appreciate anything, and it can be the simplest of terms. It could be something as simple as it rains for 6 straight days, so on the 7th day when it's sunny, you appreciate it that much more. I wouldn't consider that tragedy to triumph, but I consider that more like you experience kind of sucky, crappy weather, I guess, to then to just appreciate the sunny day that much more. That's what it comes down to. I mean, if you think about it, I'm sure, you enjoy weekends a whole lot more when you, your week wasn't too, well, again, this is kind of subjective here, but I think it's kind of common to say that most people enjoy their weekends more when they don't enjoy their week too much. And not that you should settle for a week that you hate so you can live for the weekends. I'm the polar opposite of that. I'll never be the one to tell you that. But it's when it's more of like a discipline throughout the week so that you can do more things socially. I guess on the weekends you appreciate it that much more. But um, you know what? Tragedy to triumph too. Thinking back on the way I titled this, it just kind of sounded, it was catchy. I was in church this morning. I was praying on it, saying, Lord, what should I really speak about in this episode? And it's tough to make longer episodes on this. I feel like I can kind of summarize it relatively quickly. That's why I'm babbling a bit here, just trying to figure out ways to get to the point, but not, make it a 5-minute video. Just think of it as like an analogy in a sense, just figuratively speaking, that it takes some sort of, like you can't appreciate anything half decent without experiencing the half decent in the other way form of, suffering. But suffering is also a very extreme term, as I made the weather analogy too. It's just you'll appreciate the sunny day and nice warm day much more when you experience, 4 or 5 days in a row. It's just kind of, crappy, ugly weather. And I apologize too. This is kind of getting dragged and babbled here. I didn't have this written out in front of me. But in the simplest, most layman's terms here, and I might even just cut the extremely short. It's just whatever you're in. If it sucks, if it's just terrible, if it's just awful, understand that there is light at the end of the tunnel, but it has to be Jesus Christ. It can't be the world. If you're waiting on the world to bless you and give you breakthrough, you will be waiting forever, or you'll get it, and it's going to be something that's not better for you. It may seem like it in the moment, but it's not going to be the best thing in regard to longevity. Because most people are just not willing to sacrifice what they want now for what they want later, especially, in 99% of cases, what they want later is far greater than what they want now. But it just takes a great deal of patience, and I remind myself of this every day. So by no means am I trying to judge you or say I'm better than you, because I'm not. But for those of you who have experienced it, I think it's safe to say we all have been humbled by it. We've all learned from it, and it's going to make the next scenario that comes our way, the next circumstance that's pretty unfortunate, a little bit easier. Not easy, but easier, because we know that even if it's a tougher assignment, to deal with or to take on, that we overcame it the first time, God willing, of course, and every time to follow, we know the result is. We know the outcome is that the battle has been won, here on earth and in the next life, and got to clench on to that, hold on to that, especially in a world where it's just not looking too good. Hold on to that fact, and whatever tragedy you're suffering at the moment, whether it's extreme or extremely little, know that at the end there'll be triumph in every single case. Doesn't matter what it looks like, there will be triumph at the end. Sometimes you got to expand your timeline. Sometimes you got to work harder. Sometimes you just got to see it through and just keep doing what you're doing. But eventually there will be triumph at the end of the tunnel. At the end of the road, that is. And I can go into so much deeper, I can go so much deeper with this. But at this point, I see no reason for it. And as I mentioned, this is a bit rushed, but in the same right, I think you guys get the point. And I know I didn't give the best examples. I gave a testimony and just a couple common whatever real world scenarios as to how tragedy could turn into triumph. But I don't expect this to make you feel better. If you're in the middle of it, I don't expect to make it feel better. That's not realistic. I think what has to happen is you have to just take my word, try trusting me. If nothing else has worked, try trusting this weird guy on the internet with the big forehead, as all my buddies like to tell me every day, so they can focus on when they talk to me, that there is light at the end of the tunnel. You just got to see it through. Just make the distinction between if you're doing what you got to get done, or if you just got to keep waiting it out and doing exactly what you've been doing. Just try to establish that fact. I believe God will lead you in that way through prayer and through repetition and trial and error, and eventually you'll find that light. You'll find that triumph. You'll find that success. You'll hold the trophy high, have an amazing testimony to help the next guy. Hopefully like what I'm doing for you guys right now. I'm sorry it took the 14-minute mark to get to that, but that's the main statement in a nutshell. So that being said, I'm going to cut it here, guys. Sorry I'm really pressed for time today. It's already Sunday at 4 o'clock. Usually I have this done by Saturday afternoon. Just all over the place as of recent. So I really hope this helps in some way. I'd like to hear some even more feedback from you guys if possible, just so I know I'm picking relevant topics and topics that are actually going to help you guys somewhat, or that you could share with somebody else who may need it. And that being said, as always, I love you guys. And until next time, God bless.